Welcome to the Lowdown Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who has supported the industry for years with effective lead generation strategies and is now doing some really interesting stuff with AI well beyond ChatGPT. He's the founder and president at Loans on Demand. Luke Shankula, thank you for joining the Lowdown and welcome, man.
Man, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And we did this about a year ago in my podcast, and now here we are doing this again. So I'm excited. Obviously, being here on the other side of the equation. So I don't get interviewed as much as I interview people, but hey, you know what? I'll try. I'll do my best.
We're gonna put you in the hot seat, man.
Cool. Sounds good. Sounds good. Hey, I'm happy to.
Yeah, thanks for joining. I know you're going to bring a ton of value to the audience and the people listening. You know, our audience here on the Lowdown Podcast is really just this evolving originator, people who have, figured out the basics of this job. They know how to get loans. They know how to fund a loan. They can structure it, but there's something that they want more out of this industry, and so they're always looking for new ideas and better ways and things to do so they can grow and scale their business. And, you've really been catching my attention with some of the work you've been putting out there on Facebook and LinkedIn and what you're discovering with AI and some of the new tools that you're venturing into. And so I wanted to dive into that a little bit. But before we go there, just for context for the people listening, give us some idea of how you got to where you are today. We don't need the full origin story, but what was the moment that kind of got you into the role you're in today, and what drives you in what you're doing nowadays?
Yeah, man. So I kind of got my feet wet in this industry. I think it's 2012, somewhere around there. So I actually ended up getting a job almost right out of college at a reverse mortgage company. Didn't have any idea what a reverse mortgage was. And funny because when I was leaving the job that I was at, the guy that was my boss was like, "Oh, you're going to go scam old people, huh?" Because I had no idea what a reverse mortgage was at the time. So anyway, I go into reverse mortgage. I worked there for almost 4.5 years. They, issues and stuff like that, they ended up shutting down in about January of 2017, right? So in that whole journey, I realized that the corporate life wasn't particularly fun for me. And so I kind of set off on this journey to figure out how can I basically work for myself? How can I be an entrepreneur? And what's interesting is that a podcast actually is what kind of set me on that path. I started listening to, I don't know if you've heard this one, but Entrepreneur on Fire way back in the day. And so he was just talked about it. He basically has a daily podcast, right? Which is crazy, right? So he interviews, he has a podcast that drops every single day, and he's interviewing different entrepreneurs, right? And so I'm listening to this on the way to work. I'm like, oh, there's a whole nother world out there. I don't have to work my way up the corporate ladder. I can actually be my own boss. And so January of 2017, got laid off. I was like, well, let's try to do some stuff. Got my license to become a loan officer. And then I also tried the contract process. So technically started 2 businesses. Neither of those really worked out. I mean, my contract processing business lasted 2 files. And then I realized, heck no, I'm never going to do that again. And then my mortgage career lasted a couple months. And then I realized I had no idea how to take an application. I knew all of the guidelines about reverse mortgages and stuff like that, but I had no idea what I was doing. And so along that time, I started figuring out, how can I get myself business? I found a course. I bought a course for Facebook ads, and the rest is history, right? I ended up building an agency, right? A marketing agency helping loan officers generate direct consumer leads, and I learned a lot throughout that time. Obviously, there's been 100 evolutions since 2017.
Yeah.
If I looked at myself, if I were looking at myself from 2017's eyes, man, it would be pretty incredible to see the journey. Sometimes we forget that. I mean, the Gap in the Gain book makes it kind of interesting, where a lot of times we're so focused on where we want to be that we don't see how far we've come. So That's something that I have to remind myself regularly, is to look at the past and see, okay, well, you know what? I've done a lot of cool things, learned a lot of cool things. The industry's been hard the last couple of years, which makes it a little harder for us to see the positive light. But here we are, and we're surviving and thriving,
Yeah. Well, and what you're doing with lead generation, I can't imagine how challenging that is to stay in front of the trends and the algorithms and the different just moving targets that all come along with that. I mean, you've been doing that since 2017, years of just sort of trying to hit a bullseye. What are some of the big changes that you've seen over the course of those years that have really been, I guess, major shifts in the way we generate leads and what you do?
I mean, the platforms as a whole change regularly. So if you're not a practitioner of these platforms, it gets pretty hard to keep up, right? Because things change. I mean, and I thought changes were happening fast with, platforms like Facebook and other platforms like ad platforms. But then watching how quickly AI is moving now, it's a whole nother ballpark, man. A lot of these things are changing, right? So I think some of the changes were in regulations, right? I think it was 2019 when there was some rules that rolled out because HUD sued Facebook around basically targeting. So you couldn't target within certain area ranges and stuff like that because of the fair housing violations. And then there was also a big change that happened was the tracking with the Meta Pixel, right? The Meta Facebook Pixel, where iOS 15, I think, came out, or 14. I can't remember which one it was, but it took away a lot of the tracking that we had. And so we had to scramble for that. So there's been a lot of changes over the years. Targeting has gotten less precise, so we don't have as much data. And so you have to be a little bit more skilled nowadays than you used to have to be to generate similar quality and cost of leads. And so as platforms mature, the platforms do tend to increase in cost, right? Because as they get more users, the more advertising they can sell, the more, that's kind of how they make their money, right? As a lot of these advertising platforms make money off of selling advertising, right? So that has been the main issue. And now with AI rolling out, there's a whole bunch of things that are going to be changing here with UGC creators, like we talked about, like, using actors to do your ads and then using AI to then create those actual videos, which is wild. So there's a whole new world out there that, let's be honest, is going to drastically disrupt the industry. Now, I think people are of the belief that this is going to take longer. I do not believe that it's going to take as long as people believe. And I think there's going to be a first mover's advantage for the originators, the mortgage companies, the vendor associations, like anybody that is associated with this industry or any industry in general the people that start with this first are going to have a massive advantage over the people that wait 1-2 years, be like, oh yeah, ChatGPT is just a fad or whatever. Like, it's not. Like, guys, it's not.
Right. So let's pause there for a second. I want to go further down that path, but before we do, so you mentioned ChatGPT, and I think when people think AI today, that's the first, platform that they think of, right? And I know for me, I use it. I'm a wordy guy, so if I write a long post for social media, I might run it through a ChatGPT and just say, make this shorter for me, or turn this into a newsletter article, or I'll, find some way to get it into a different format to save me time, because ultimately, if I were to just sit there and think about it myself and try to figure it out, it might take me a lot longer than I really want to give it if I could just search and get an immediate answer spit out. But you're talking about all sorts of other tools. So first, I guess let me ask you this, like, for a loan officer who's just getting started and exploring ChatGPT, what would you suggest is their best and most effective use of that platform? And then where could they go from there?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly still recommend using one of the large language models, which is what ChatGPT is. ChatGPT is yes, probably the most popular or the most known. I think it's because it was also the first kind of to the market. Again, first mover's advantage, right? They created a product that everybody sort of counts as the first, kind of like the iPhone being the first smartphone, right? They're sort of the pinnacle of the industry. That being said, there's other models that are very similar. The big thing about these platforms, especially these large language models, like that's going to be like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, like some of these other platforms that you can just kind of type and then get responses back, is it comes down to a couple things. One, prompting, right? You talked about certain ways that you could prompt, like, hey, make this shorter, stuff like that. But what my suggestion is to loan officers is to really deeply understand prompting, and how to also you want to create training data that is better than the generic output, because you got to think about it from this perspective. These large language models, for the most part, are trained off the entirety of the internet, the entirety of the data, right? Like, they have so many parameters, so that they're trained on both good data and terrible data, right? So like, that's why when you go, hey, write me a social media post, It's going to have a crappy looking thing. It's got way too many hashtags, way too many emojis.
Rocket
They're
emojis
terrible.
And
Yes, they're terrible. They say unlock, unleash, elevate, like those types of words. It's a clear giveaway. So if it's obvious that you're using ChatGPT, you are using that platform, in my opinion, the wrong way. Now, can you use it for a lot of things? I still use it for a lot of things, like analyze this image and give me what it says, right? Like if I'm like too lazy to like type out what I see in like a video, I'll literally take a screenshot of the video, upload it and say, hey, can you just turn this into text for me? Then I can copy that real quick. Like little things like that are hacks. But what really is the hack is, and I haven't told people this yet, but like the last like 10 or 15 days, almost every single one of my posts have been written 100% by AI. And the reason why they're so good, and they actually pass. So originality AI is like the pinnacle of AI detection tools, right? So it's one of those tools that'll detect if it's written by AI or not. So about a couple weeks ago, I had this trained model on Claude, and it was still showing up as like 65% most likely written by a bot, right? Or by AI. So I started going back and forth. I found a post that showed up as 100% human in originality AI. I put that into that same thing and I said, hey, this one is showing up as 100% human. How can you write your posts better so that they come out human? And so I started iterating that way. Next thing you know, I take the prompt and I plug it into my custom instructions, which is a way you basically set the instructions at sort of like a higher level. On Claude, they have what's called projects. On ChatGPT, they have GPTs. They actually have projects now as well. But so they've created that so you can basically upload all your instructions of how exactly you want this AI to perform in the specific scenario. So you could have a AI script writer that all you got to do is put the idea in, and it's going to put out a video script for you in a specific format based off of proven templates, based off of proven viral hooks, based off of viral videos. So that is kind of the next level of these large language models is, okay, first level is just use it. Mm-hmm. Level 2 is like, start to do the stuff you talked about, Connor. So you're at least on level 2. You're using it. You're putting stuff in there. You're asking to make it shorter. But then the next level is like, how do you train it to sound like you? Well, go upload 100 of your last emails and say, hey, emulate these emails. This is the style that I want you to emulate. Analyze these emails, and then now write me emails based off of that style.
Yeah.
Now you all of a sudden have emails that actually sound exactly like you.
Right.
And probably write better than you and do it in a fraction of the time. So that's kind of that next level. That's kind of, and you can get deeper there. I mean, there's other cool things you can do and using the API.
I love that because what I've noticed is, when you use ChatGPT or any of those models to create you a social media post, the platforms sniff it out and they squash it. A typical, something that I write that gets posted out to social media, LinkedIn, for example, I'm going to get 1,000, 2,000, sometimes 5 or 10,000 impressions. If I ask ChatGPT to write me a post, it is going to get less than 200. Just LinkedIn knows. Facebook knows. They know it's not you that wrote it. So being able to train the tool to look or to sound more like you and emulate your voice is really important if you want to use it to save you time in that area. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting time because you're just posting out, content that no one's going to see because the platform is going to squash it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I found that once I started, so I was posting stuff that I thought was very valuable, but it was still showing up in that originality AI as most likely written by AI. So I assume that these platforms do have a way to monitor for AI-based content and are going to they're basically going to suppress it in the newsfeed. Now, if you start to get some engagement and stuff like that, it could be better. It could start to work better. But for the most part, yeah, they want people to stay on the platform. So if they feel like this is going to be a bad user experience, right, it will likely affect your reach. And so that's why I think it is super important to have content. Well, one, for a couple of reasons. One, the algorithm itself. But secondly, like, this is your freaking brand, man. Like, you're putting up crap that people can tell, like, even people that are not in the industry, like people that don't even have a huge understanding of ChatGPT. If someone says, hey, was this written by ChatGPT? Like, most likely it's because it sucks. Let's be honest. Yeah. It's because it sucks. It's boring. It's long. ChatGPT loves to be verbose. It likes to use big words. It likes to use words that humans wouldn't use. And again, remember, like it's trained off the entirety of the data on the internet. And you got to remember, like, most of the freaking stuff on the internet sucks. Like, most of human created content sucks. There's a reason why the people that are at the top of the game go viral, because they have a specific, we've been talking about marketing right before this, before we went live, like learning the what works, the hooks, the delivery, all that kind of stuff that comes along with marketing. There's a reason why it works, but most of the content that's out there is not written through that lens. And so if you have data sets that emulate the type of content you want to create, then you're more likely to get the outputs you want. And you have to iterate with it, right? Like, I don't always use the first post that I get out of it. Like, sometimes I'm like, well, I don't want that, or I don't want this. This is weird. You made up a story about something that didn't actually happen, which AI likes to do. It likes to hallucinate a lot. But it's a tool, and it's getting better. Frankly, that's the surface, man. This is what I was excited about. Like, I started doing this like about 2 years ago. I started messing with these types of tools, and I was super pumped. And then I kind of was like, all right, cool, this is cool. And I use it all the time. But over the last, I don't know, probably 60 to 90 days, last 6 months maybe, I have gone down some rabbit holes of what is actually possible and what is coming, right? What's coming.
So what are some, like, let's just talk generically first. As far as different tools that are out there, can you name a few and what they do that, that are really starting to excite you?
Man, as far as like platforms, well, so there's a couple. I'll go more in categories outside of that. So there is what's called no code. They're no code application creators or website creators. There's several of them. Lovable.dev. There's Bolt.new. There's Replit. There's all kinds. These are platforms that basically allow a normal human being like us that doesn't know anything about coding, that doesn't know anything about Python or any of that stuff to create things. So what's cool is that, like, as a creative person, this blows my mind, because I can go in there, I can create something, type out my idea, and boom, right in front of my eyes, there's at the very least a first draft or an idea of what I want. And then, I think right now a lot of these platforms maybe aren't quite ready to go full into development if you're trying to sell the product or whatever. But you can get the first draft ready and then get it to a developer that can turn that into reality. Now you actually have a fully functional sort of like wireframe or idea. Hey, this is kind of what I want built. Now build it so that it loads correctly, so it doesn't break, so, like that type of stuff, right? Which is stuff I have no idea. I'm also, by the way, using ChatGPT. I created a full stack developer persona to train a junior stack developer, me. I don't know anything about code, so I said, hey, act as a full stack developer that is training a new junior full stack developer from scratch how to know code. So put together a curriculum based off of your years of knowledge as a full stack developer that would train a new junior stack full stack developer. And it's starting to like create like curriculum for me. It's gamifying it for me. Again, it's based off the prompts, but that's what's exciting, is like it's allowing normal people to create. And what does that look like for like a loan officer? I mean, there's all kinds of different things you could do. You could create like a note-taking app. You could give some sort of a way that you can create value for your real estate agent. Maybe you created a couple tools that are able to be done. What's it called? That are let's call it like maybe you created a couple like content creation tools that you turned into. I know it's going to be hard to explain this to someone that doesn't understand ChatGPT like I do. So I'm trying to explain. So like I have these trained models, right? I have my Luke Claude persona, right? It's basically trained on a whole bunch of my content, and that's what I use all the time to create these stuff. So what if you created a couple of those for real estate agents? Said, hey, all you got to do is give me the idea or put the idea into this app. You press send, boom, out spits a copy, right? Out spits a script. Right now, you're giving all this value to a real estate agent, right? So I always try to bring this back to like, what's the practical application to business? Right. I think a lot of people out here are shouting from the rooftops that AI is here, but then there's like, they don't show you the practical applications of these platforms. That it's like, I don't care that it can write a poem or a haiku. Right. I care about, can it help me in my business? Mm-hmm. So like, and I just keep going down the rabbit holes. You want me to go down another rabbit hole? Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm loving this. This is great. So, all right. So, out, man. All right. So, and obviously I'm still like very much at heart a marketer. And so a lot of this boils down into like, how can I use this to market at scale, to create better content, to create more content? And it's not more content that's bad, right? Like, I think that's the thing to me that's scary about AI is unless you understand the principles of good content, like you were talking about, you're reading these books. It's like if you understand what good copy is, then you can create good copy with AI. If you don't know what good copy is, for everybody who probably doesn't even know what copy is copywriting, right? So copywriting strategies, using copy to sell things or to market things. And so what's happening, like I said before, is like people are posting these things on social media that like are very clearly created by AI. And the more awareness to the product happens, the more people are just gonna be like, oh, that's AI. Like, I'm not even gonna read that. So like that's a huge thing. So anyway, the next sort of set of tools are what I think is really the future, and what really has gotten me like crazy excited, but also a little bit nervous, is these agentic systems, right? So these are basically AI. Are you familiar with like Make or Zapier?
Zapier I've heard of, but no, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so Zapier and Make and these types of platforms are basically a way to connect different platforms. So like via API, right? So like you can connect your CRM to your Facebook leads, right? Or your whatever. So like instead of having to code up a server and like do all that stuff that has to happen in the backend to connect the two API endpoints, you just use an app, right? Both of those apps do that, right? So what these new agent systems are doing is essentially doing something like that, right? So there is kind of workflows, which is going to be just automations, right? So you just set up like a Zapier automation where it's like you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you follow this process every time. And then there's workflows that are like workflow. It still follows the same process, but within that process, you're using something like an LLM, right? So like you're using like, hey, let's go to ChatGPT to get you a summary of this. And then there's like actual like agents that you can build, or branches of agents or groups of agents. Like, so let's say you have like an example that I posted the other day was you have like a head honcho, right? Like the boss agent, and he's the one that sort of like tells everybody what to do, right? So let's say you get a lead in, comes to your website, they fill out a form. Then I'm talking about from a B2B perspective. So let's say a real estate agent, whatever, reaches out to you and fills out a form. So then that agent will then send this to a data scraper bot that'll go to their LinkedIn, that'll pull the data, that'll create a report, basically pull a bunch of data. Then it goes to the next step, which is basically going to go into like an LLM that's going to basically turn that into like an actual report that's readable, not just a whole bunch of scraped data. And then from there, then it goes back into the LLM that then will use that to create a personalized script for the next step, which is then a voice agent AI. So now it's taking a customized script based off information that it scraped on this side to then call the agent, or whoever it is that you're calling, to then call that agent and basically have a personalized conversation. Hey, I know, whatever, I saw that you're on, you work with Lower Connor and like basically be able to like have that conversation with you, and you have a knowledge base, you can ask questions, it can go back to that knowledge base with something called RAG, which is basically where it can go search and use these search parameters to go find this data. And if you don't have an answer, you can tell it, hey, don't answer if you don't have an answer. And then you can bring a human into the loop, and the human can answer that. Well, obviously not on a phone call, but let's call it let's say it's like an email or a customer service bot. That person can like have 100 frequently asked questions. And when I say that person, that bot, that AI agent could have 100 frequently asked questions. And in that knowledge base, they ask like the 101th question, which is something that's not on that knowledge base, right? Yeah. So, okay, real quick, I'll get back to you. It'll send an email or send like a Slack channel to someone that's the human in the loop, the person that's going to then answer the question. So then what it'll do is it'll answer that question. The bot will not only respond with that answer to the customer, but will also update the knowledge base so they never have to ask that question again.
Okay. Wow.
So when I tell you like, and this is just like the beginning, like you still have to be pretty technical to build these systems out. You have to be pretty persistent. You have to know prompting, but there's going to be a time here in the near future where you literally can probably go, I want you to create a bot for XYZ. Yeah. Boom, it's going to create the whole thing. Just like you can do that with websites.
Yeah.
And it's just going to create it for you.
You've got my mind like really my gears turning, because I'm thinking from a loan officer's perspective, if I've got MMI data on a realtor, and how could I, put that into an AI and, develop a marketing strategy to earn the business of, Sally Sue agent, or how could I, provide value to this agent based off of their, the zip code that most of their transactions are in, and what's the market like in that area, or whatever, right? Like, there's just there's really endless possibilities if you know how to use the tool to then go in and play with it and find really creative uses of the tool and outcomes. So I think there's a lot of people that are a little afraid to go down that path.
Yeah.
And I mean, clearly you're excited about it, and I've ventured lightly into it, but what I've learned is once you start using it, you get way more comfortable with it, and then your like creativity starts to take over, and then it really starts to get like into this really cool area where you can start to produce some really neat content for your business partners and such. So have you seen any application like that where you're starting to pull that transaction data or just those types of things for agents?
Yeah, you could easily, I mean, if you have the data, you can use any of those platforms. And you could create like an agent to do some of that for you if you wanted to, but that gets a little complex. You could literally just take raw data, put it into something like, so I don't know if you know this guy, but Tyler, he's a loan officer in Texas, and he took a list of MMI data. He asked ChatGPT, I think it was ChatGPT, one of these models, but I think it was ChatGPT. He asked ChatGPT to look at the data and then pull the people that had produced at least X amount of deals within the last 6 months, because he was looking at like a 14-month window, because I think it was MMI. There's some other tools out there, by the way, that will do that without having to do that. But anyway, so he did that, and he was able to identify who was the ones that were actually closing deals within the last 6 months, right? This was probably like a year ago or maybe 6 months ago that he did that. And so, I mean, cool. Now you already have a list of people that are doing transactions in this market right now. You could probably break it down by product type. Are they doing VA? Are they doing FHA? Are they doing USDA? I mean, again, if you can get that data, the use case that I see is like, okay, cool, you're licensed in California. I'll go pull a list of all the people that are licensed in California that close at least X amount of deals per year. I'm going to freaking get all their emails, have it scrape some data off of them online, and then can create customized cold emails and send out to them cold emails. Anybody that responds or opens the emails can then get a call from an agent. I think for the next 2 years, AI is going to be an advantage. Now, in 2 years, when everybody's trying this crap, like marketers break everything. We always break everything. The truth is, like, we always overdo things, right? That's why SMS is having the issues that we're having, right? That's why email has all the regulations it has, and that's what's going to happen with AI. But again, first mover's advantage. Right now, we're in a time where most people that are using it are using just ChatGPT, and most people aren't using it at all. And most of the reason is because they don't know how to use it. And let's be honest, it takes time. It's overwhelming. It is overwhelming. Like, I'll be honest, every single day I'm like, holy crap, there's another tool that I got to go research.
Yeah.
I spend probably hours, probably 3 to 4 hours a night right now. I'm watching YouTube videos, putting that into my Slack channel. I created a private Slack channel that I just put all my AI stuff, any new AI tools that I find, any new AI workflows that I want to go back to and watch the next day, where I can start to build stuff alongside the people. There's a lot of people putting out tutorials online. X, you can go and find, again, and the more I do this, the more I realize, like, no one even, like, there's so much stuff that I'm doing that I started talking about, and people are like, hit me up. Like, I'm telling you, man, I'm getting hit up in the DMs for the last like couple days. Like, I want to know your thing. I'm like, all right, guys, I've spent hundreds of hours doing this stuff. Like, I guess I'm starting a course here pretty soon. I don't know. We'll see.
Absolutely, man. I mean, like I said at the very beginning, I started to see you pop up with some of the new things that you were working on. I mean, even just the AI generated photos that you were posting of you, like around Christmas time, or with the iRobot kind of, picture with your face. Like, I mean, those look so perfectly done. Like, I mean, it looks like you in the picture, right? And so there's just, it's really mind blowing when you start to see it. I mean, the reality is, for a loan officer, it would take them a long time to probably develop the skill on their own, or they could find you and as the shortcut.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think that would be an awesome offer for you to make. But
yeah, I pay for stuff, by the way. I'm in multiple masterminds. It's not like I have invested in the last 6 years, 7 years, I've invested north of $250,000 in my own development. Like, that's not including ad spend and stuff like that and paying my team. Like, that's in like coaching and consulting and like sales coaches and marketing coaches and courses and masterminds and all of the things, right? Like I've spent a hell of a lot of money, and it's always worth it. Bent out of shape about coaches. Coaches, like let's even talk about your friend Amir, right? Like Amir is freaking a killer. Like he doesn't do coaching because he wants to make more money. Like he does it because that's he's passionate about it. Most coaches don't. Yes, you can make money doing it too and deliver a good product. But I think there's so much of the negativity around coaching, and it's like, dude, everybody has a coach.
What I have noticed in 10 years of recruiting is in this industry is you can tell when you talk to a loan officer who's being coached and one who isn't.
Yep.
There is just a different way that they speak. There is a different way that they think. I mean, it is clear as day when I'm talking with someone who's been coached or is currently being coached versus someone who never has. And that's a big gap in our industry as well, in terms of just what can the average loan officer expect to get in terms of coaching from, day one of being a part of the organization or being, in that role of loan officer. And so it makes, this industry challenging to grow up good LOs. We talked a little bit about that offline before we got started here. Like, there are some people that are just naturals at this business because it's a part of their, it's just a part of how they're made, right? It's just a part of their personality to be good with people, and they just have a knack for it. You can't coach some of that stuff, but you can take that and really do something great with it, right?
Right.
And so yeah, there's a lot of value in getting coached, and I love that even you are investing not just time but your own money and doing the things to add value to yourself so that you can deliver value to others. And I think that really is the whole point here is if you are building your own self-value and then bring that out to the world, you become a valuable person to other people.
Right.
And these tools that we're talking about, learning how to use them, finding different applications that you can implement into your business really makes you a much more valuable loan officer to your referral partners, to your clients, to everyone within your sphere, to recruit, if you're looking to build your team. You become a very valuable commodity in the business, and that's such an attractive quality. And so to grow and scale, sometimes it really comes back to how valuable are you? And if you're not that valuable, you're going to have a hard time growing and scaling. So, anyway, let's...
Real quick, I love that you said that because that's one of the things that we find all the time as well is like so many, unfortunately, like you said, the industry as a whole does a pretty terrible job of coaching people on the fundamentals of not being a loan officer, because I think for the most part, the industry does okay at that. They do okay at training them on how to be a loan officer, but they do a terrible job of teaching them how to be marketers, salespeople, relationships, creating offers, creating a unique value proposition, creating plans. Like, the reactivity in this industry is so glorified that's like, how do you get anything done with the fact that like you have to respond to an email in 2 minutes? Like that's one, unreasonable, and you're never going to scale if you're always answering in that time. But I just find that unfortunately the industry as a whole does a terrible job. And I mean like the industry most of the time, most companies have terrible marketing training, terrible sales training that, very old school, like, just shame them into signing up with you. Like, no, like what? Like, that's not how this works. Yeah. Get louder, ask more times. I remember when I started as an AE, my boss was like, here's a list of people that have closed, it was the RMI data was what it was called, reverse market insight. It was all the people that had closed, all the brokers that had closed reverse mortgages. And so it's like, here's the freaking list. I'm like, what do I say? Just call them. I'm just like, and I remember actually the CEO of the company coming to us, and he's like, all right, guys, like, what do you guys need? And I was like, man, I would love some more training, like sales training. And like, yeah, companies don't really do that anymore. That's what he told me. And that company went out of business. So, we can tell based off of that answer why they went out of business. I'm sure this guy was paid millions of dollars to basically be borderline incompetent at his job. I mean, hey, it is what it is. Like I get it. A job as a CEO is not easy. I mean, I do it at a small scale compared to a lot of these big guys, but it's tough. I mean, managing people's stuff, like managing not only your own self, but other people is tough. But yeah, I agree. I think the stuff that like I talk about, and then I talk to with like some of my clients, or not clients, like some of our customers, like our loan officers are like, man, I wish they taught this stuff in like mortgage. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like this is the thing. The reason why there's coaches is because there's such a massive gap between what they should know and what they know. And even then, like there's a lot of bad coaches, unfortunately, out there. There's a lot of people telling them the wrong things, or I mean, these things work, but there's still a lot of people that are just telling them to, if you just pound the phone enough,
right,
it'll work. Like, but like, what if you could do that? Because volume does matter. The truth is, volume does matter. But what if you could do the volume, but actually have a real cool offer that like people are like, hey, you know what? I actually want. Let me listen to you. Yeah, cool. You actually have a direct consumer lead generation system that you can help me implement in my own business. Yeah. Oh, you actually can do X, Y, Z, whatever it is that you do that's better or different. Honestly, different. Different is more important, right?
Different
like
is better. Yeah.
I'll say this, Connor, man, you have, I know you've been seeing this from people. Like I have seen the way, even when we talked last year, I remember, just kind of praising you from the fact of like, you just approach recruiting and all this from a different model. And I do think this is going to be the way that this goes forward, because, traditionally it's just been pound them and try to give them money. That's basically what recruiting has been up until this point. And that's the same thing that loan officers do for agents. Let's be honest. Most of the top producers have MSAs. They're paying for Google. They're like, why not learn how to generate your own leads? Why not learn how to create your own process? I don't know. To me, like giving people money is such a losing proposition, because someone's always going to come along and give them more money. So unless you bring value that's like, hey, I can't get this somewhere else, right? Like having platforms, having training, having, people like Amir, people like you, people like Dustin, that to me is a value proposition. That's why Lower's freaking growing, man. I don't know. I'm not here to
I appreciate that.
But hey, you know what? I know this. I know. This is. I'm the one that's on the pedestal. What the heck, Luke?
But that's, and not to make this about a recruiting conversation, but you're absolutely right, and it's sales and marketing 101, right? You can do a lot of damage by trying to get louder and louder and play the numbers game, because you leave a lot of collateral damage behind when you have to make 200 calls to get one win. Well, there's 199 burned leads potentially, right? Versus if you take volume and add skill and then have that offer, well, now if you're skillfully calling volume, you have a better opportunity to at least preserve the no's for, maybe not nows, right? And flip those and incubate and keep them for later. And then, and have a funnel to put them through, right? And have a strategy on how you're going to follow up after the initial no thanks. So there's a lot of technique that not necessarily exists out there. And I feel like, if we can go into that in the future more and really, get loan officers enrolled in some of those techniques and learning the tried and true, like evergreen practices that work in every industry, right? Like there are formulas and frameworks out there that work every time in different markets and different products and different industries, and just learning those could be so valuable. But anyway, let's wrap up, man. I like to ask these 5 questions at the end of every episode. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. These are fun questions, so lighthearted. But first is, what is a favorite quote of yours that you have from a movie, TV show, book, song, lyric? Could be anything, but what's a quote that you just absolutely love?
Man, you are putting me on the spot. From a movie, I don't know. The first thing that came to mind, totally random. I don't know if it's my favorite quote. I love Dumb and Dumber. Was one of my favorite movies as a teenager.
Yeah, love it.
So radio, who needs a radio? Just anything really from Dumb and Dumber, but the first thing that came to mind was like, radio, who needs a radio? Yeah.
I love it, man.
I can quote half that movie, man, to be honest.
Dude, yeah. Dumb and Dumber, we introduced that to our kids, and they like it, and it's just, it's a classic, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, second question. What is a hidden talent that you have?
And hidden talent. Well, is this like a hidden talent? Like I play soccer and no one knows about it? Or are you talking about like what is something like a hidden talent?
Yeah,
So like
that,
I've played soccer my whole life. That's one thing. But a hidden talent that I would say is like more of like a talent is I do a very good job of taking something and making it better. I'm not the best person at starting from scratch, which is why I think I love AI so much, is because it allows me to kind of have a foundation to where I can make it better and turn it into my own, right? That's actually something that my COO would tell me is, that's the thing that I'm the best at is really just taking something and making it better.
Yeah. Okay. Third question. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what's another career that you would like? What's a dream career that you wanted to do?
Man, I feel like I'm in it right now, man, to be honest. Like the transition transition into the AI stuff, right? Like, I mean, I think I'll be honest, like the marketing side of like running the agency and doing it for people, has been tough. But this whole world of AI, I think that's the world, at least for the next, 5-10 years, I'll be pretty embedded in. I actually do love the mortgage industry. So I don't know. I know I'll be attached to this industry in some way or capacity for a while. I do think though that the real talk, if I was younger, like I would have loved to be a professional soccer player, but outside of that, like a more realistic, like, hey, you know what, I'm 36, I ain't playing soccer anytime soon. But as a kid, for sure, soccer, yeah.
Yeah, hey, I was the same way. I want to be the GM for the San Antonio Spurs, pull the trades, do the draft picks. So that would be my dream come true. Okay, awesome. Next question. What TV, movie, or book character do you identify with the most?
Man, I hardly watch any of that stuff. I don't know if I identify with them the most, but there is a comedian that people always say looks like me. It's a little different, more of a doppelganger. Man, who I identify with.
Well, who's the comedian?
I can't even think of his name right now, to be honest.
Okay.
It's a Christian comedian. Heck is his name?
John Christ.
Yes,
is that it?
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly,
I'm looking at you right now, and I'm like, yeah, he kind of looks like that guy. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
People say that all the time. Yeah, so he's a funny guy too. I really like his content. So I really like to joke about that kind of stuff too. I mean, raised Christian, all that kind of stuff too. So I think a lot of the stuff he talks about is funny. So, I mean, I would just say that's probably, he looks like me, but also I do think he's kind of funny in terms of like a lot of what he talks about.
All right. And then final one, and I'll let you run. What is one thing from your childhood that you wish would make a comeback? It could be anything, man. It could be a candy that you used to be able to get at the candy store, a restaurant you used to go to, a TV show you used to watch. It could be anything.
And these are some hard questions, man. One thing from my childhood, make a comeback. Dang. I mean, the first thing I thought about was in Ecuador when I was growing up, they had these things called these Gatorade, black ice Gatorades.
Okay.
I remember loving those. I don't think you can get those here. I don't think they're available anywhere, to be honest, but it used to be called black ice. Yeah, it was like a specific brand or a specific one there in Ecuador. Yeah. So that's one thing. I mean, I know it's totally different, but I remember that being like something
good, man. Like, that's why I asked the question, because you never know how random the answer is going to be, and that's what makes it fun. So
I honestly don't know if it was like the best answers, but they were the first things that came to my mind, so yeah, maybe they are the best if they're the first.
I appreciate you joining the Lowdown and just kind of sharing all your knowledge and wisdom on what you got going on. It's exciting. I love that we're talking in this moment in time where you are clearly like figuring things out and just kind of in that phase of discovery, and that is just an exciting time. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing, and support you in everything that you're doing, and just wish you the best, man. But thanks for coming on. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Connor, man. That was so much fun. And like you said, man, it has the AI bug. I mean, I've been bit by it for a while, but the last 3 to 6 months has been like a whole nother, like I just hardly can't sleep with this stuff. So it's exciting times, man. I think it is exciting, a little bit scary for the people that don't implement, but exciting for the rest of us.
Looking forward to more from you, man. All right. Well, thanks for joining.
You have a good one. Peace.